Wheat Belly, Lose the Wheat, Lose the Weight, and Find Your Path Back to Health by William Davis, MD. Ever dug through an old family photo album? I'm talking really old. The kind with those grainy black and white shots from the 1950s or 60s. Take a close look at those pictures. Notice anything strange? Or more accurately, notice what's missing. Where are all the overweight people? The women are practically swimming in dresses that would be a size 4 today. The men have these trim waistlines that seem almost impossible now. If someone was heavy back then, we're talking maybe an extra 10 pounds. Not the crisis-level obesity we see everywhere today. And overweight kids? They were practically unicorns. Now flash forward to today. Walk through any shopping mall, spend an afternoon at the beach, or just glance in the mirror. The contrast is absolutely jarring. Here's the puzzling part. Why were people back then so much thinner? It's genuinely mysterious when you think about it. Those women weren't hitting the gym 5 days a week. They weren't lacing up running shoes for morning jogs. For most of them, exercise meant vacuuming the living room or hanging laundry. Meanwhile, today we've got people everywhere, jogging, cycling, doing CrossFit, counting their steps, and somehow we're getting heavier every single year. What if the answer to this puzzle isn't what everyone's been telling us? What if it's not really about eating less fat or cutting out sugar? What if it's not just about exercising more? Here's the kicker. What if the real villain is something we've been told is actually good for us? Something sitting on nearly every kitchen table in America. Today we're diving into a book that presents a radical idea, one that's been life-changing for countless people. It's called Wheat Belly, written by cardiologist Dr. William Davis. And this book makes one seriously bold claim. The world's most popular grain is also one of the world's most destructive dietary ingredients. Dr. Davis isn't just throwing around theories. He's a medical detective who watched thousands of his patients do everything right, cutting fat, exercising religiously, loading up on those healthy whole grains. Yet they were still battling weight gain, diabetes, heart disease, and a whole parade of other problems. That's when he started wondering, what if the very advice they were following was actually causing their problems? That question launched him on a journey to a pretty astonishing conclusion. The wheat we're eating today isn't the same wheat your grandparents ate. It's a modern, scientifically engineered creation, a Frankengrain, if you will, designed to produce massive yields. But nobody really stopped to ask what it might be doing to our bodies. By the time we're done here today, you'll understand why Dr. Davis argues that cutting out this single ingredient can trigger dramatic weight loss, reverse chronic diseases, and restore the energy and mental clarity you thought you'd lost forever. This isn't just another diet book. It's an exposé, a detective story about how a seemingly innocent plant quietly invaded our plates and started waging war on our bodies. So get comfortable, maybe grab some coffee, just skip the muffin, and let's unpack the story of the wheat belly. Let's kick things off with a simple fact that's going to sound completely wrong at first. Ready? Take 2 slices of whole wheat bread and put them next to a bowl with 2 tablespoons of pure table sugar. Which one do you think spikes your blood sugar more? Everything you've ever been told screams that it's the sugar, right? Sugar is public enemy number 1. We're supposed to avoid it like the plague. But whole wheat bread? That's the hero of the story. It's a healthy whole grain, packed with fiber, a complex carbohydrate that's supposed to give you sustained energy. Well, here's where things get interesting. The science tells a completely different story. Those 2 slices of whole wheat bread actually raise your blood sugar higher than the straight sugar. And it's not even close in some studies. The glycemic index, which measures how fast a food spikes your blood sugar, gives whole wheat bread a score of 72. Table sugar? That's only 59. Even a Mars candy bar scores lower than whole wheat bread. Let that sink in for a second. This single fact is the key that unlocks everything Dr. Davis wants us to understand about the wheat belly. It's the starting point for this whole cascade of problems that goes way beyond just carrying some extra weight around your middle. So how is this even possible? How can a complex carbohydrate be worse than simple sugar? The answer lies in wheat's unique chemistry. About 75% of the carbohydrate in wheat is something called amylopectin A. Now, other foods have amylopectin too. Beans have amylopectin C, bananas have amylopectin B. But the A version in wheat is special. Dr. Davis calls it a quote, carbohydrate. Your body can digest it into glucose faster and more efficiently than almost any other carbohydrate on the planet. When you bite into a bagel or munch on a bran muffin, that amylopectin A gets converted to blood sugar at lightning speed. This creates this massive surge in your blood glucose. Your pancreas sees this spike and panics, releasing a flood of insulin to shuttle all that sugar out of your bloodstream and into your cells. And here's the problem. What does insulin do with all that excess sugar? It converts it straight to fat. But we're not talking about just any fat. This high insulin roller coaster triggered by wheat creates a specific, particularly nasty type of fat, visceral fat. This is the deep belly fat that wraps itself around your organs, your liver, kidneys, pancreas. From the outside, it shows up as that protruding belly that flops over your belt, the one that's become so depressingly common. Dr. Davis calls it the wheat belly. And here's the thing. This isn't just about looking good in jeans. Visceral fat isn't like a passive storage locker for extra calories. It's more like a 24/7 factory, constantly pumping out inflammatory signals throughout your entire body. It messes with your hormones. For men, this visceral fat factory even churns out estrogen, leading to what we politely call man boobs. The more visceral fat you're carrying, the more inflammation you're creating, and the more your body becomes resistant to insulin. This creates this vicious cycle. You eat wheat, blood sugar spikes, insulin surges. You store visceral fat, you become more insulin resistant, so next time you eat wheat, your pancreas has to pump out even more insulin to do the same job. Round and round it goes, day after day, meal after meal, and the cycle feeds itself through your appetite. After that massive insulin surge clears the sugar from your blood sugar often crashes hard. That hypoglycemic low is what makes your stomach start growling just 2 hours after a huge bowl of healthy cereal. It's what causes that brain fog, that fatigue, that desperate craving for another snack. Your body is screaming for more sugar to bring things back up. And what do most people reach for? More crackers, more pretzels, another sandwich. They get another wheat hit, and the roller coaster starts all over again. So the very food we're told to eat for sustained energy is actually creating this cycle of sharp highs and crashing lows, satisfaction followed by intense hunger. It's a trap. But here's the thing. The blood sugar spike is only half the story. There's another, even more sinister reason why wheat has such a powerful grip on us. And it has to do with what wheat does to our brains. What if I told you that wheat is actually an addictive drug for some people? Sounds crazy, right? Like some conspiracy theory nonsense. But there's actually fascinating, somewhat disturbing science backing this up. Dr. Davis tells stories of his patients, well-dressed, intelligent, successful people, confessing things like, "Bread is my crack. I just can't give it up." They'd describe these obsessive, all-consuming cravings for wheat products. They'd literally dream about bread. When they tried to quit, they'd experience withdrawal symptoms, crushing fatigue, brain fog, irritability, even depression. This isn't about weak willpower. This is biology at work. The story starts, weirdly enough, with schizophrenia research. Back in the mid-1960s, a psychiatrist named Dr. F. Curtis Dohan noticed something peculiar. During World War II, when food shortages made bread scarce in parts of Europe, hospital admissions for schizophrenia dropped significantly. After the war, when wheat consumption came back, hospitalizations shot right back up. He saw similar patterns in places like New Guinea, where schizophrenia was virtually unknown until Western eating habits, including wheat, were introduced. This led to some experiments that, while ethically sketchy by today's standards, were incredibly revealing. Dr. Dohan and his team removed all wheat products from schizophrenic patients, meals without telling them. Within weeks, measurable improvements showed up. Patients had fewer auditory hallucinations, fewer delusions, seemed more connected to reality. Then the researchers secretly added wheat back. The symptoms came roaring back. Remove wheat, they improved. Add it back, they got worse. This raises a pretty profound question. What's in this grain that could affect psychosis? Scientists at the National Institutes of Health decided to find out. They took gluten, wheat's main protein, and put it through a simulated digestion process. What they discovered was that digestion breaks gluten down into a mix of polypeptides. These polypeptides had a very strange property. They could cross the blood-brain barrier, that protective wall separating your brain from your bloodstream. Once inside the brain, these wheat-derived polypeptides bind to the exact same receptors that opiate drugs like heroin and morphine bind to. The scientists called these compounds exorphins, short for exogenous morphine-like compounds. The dominant one? They named it gluteomorphin. Think about that for a second. Digesting a simple bagel creates compounds that act on your brain's opiate receptors. They provide a form of reward, a mild euphoria. It's not the intense high of a narcotic, obviously, but it's a pleasant feeling that makes you want more. And just like any opiate, when you stop consuming it, you can experience withdrawal. The proof gets even more startling. There's a drug called naloxone. Emergency rooms use it for heroin overdoses. One shot instantly reverses the effects by blocking opiate receptors in the brain. Well, when lab animals get wheat exorphins and then receive naloxone, the effect of the exorphins completely disappears. The same drug that blocks heroin also blocks the brain effects of wheat. This isn't just in schizophrenics or lab animals either. Studies on regular people show that when given naloxone, their calorie intake drops significantly, especially their consumption of wheat-based snacks. Why? Because the euphoric reward vanishes. The wheat no longer provides that subtle feel-good hit that drives you to keep eating. So here's your brain on wheat. It generates morphine-like compounds that give you a little lift, stimulating your appetite not from true hunger but from a desire for that reward. It creates a cycle of addiction and withdrawal. This explains why a radical wheatectomy, as Dr. Davis calls it, can be so brutal for the first week. You're not just breaking a habit, you're breaking a biochemical addiction. When you combine these two pieces, the amylopectin, a blood sugar roller coaster, and the exorphin-driven brain effects, you've created the perfect storm for weight gain. You've got a food that spikes insulin, telling your body to store fat, while simultaneously creating a physical craving that makes you want more even when you're not hungry. It's a 1-2 punch that's massively contributed to the obesity epidemic. But the damage, as we're about to see, doesn't stop at your waistline. This altered grain wages a quiet war on nearly every system in your body. The most well-known and perhaps most devastating example of wheat's destructive power is celiac disease. This is where your immune system launches an all-out attack on your small intestine in response to gluten exposure. For about 1% of the population, even a tiny breadcrumb can trigger a reaction that destroys the delicate intestinal lining, leading to debilitating cramps, diarrhea, and severe malnutrition. But what's truly alarming is that celiac disease is on the rise. A fascinating Mayo Clinic study looked at blood samples from Air Force recruits taken and frozen 50 years ago. When they tested these old samples for celiac markers and compared them to modern samples, they found the disease's incidence has increased 4-fold. 50 years is nothing in terms of human genetics. We haven't changed, so what has? The wheat has. Dr. Davis suggests that changes in modern wheat's gluten proteins, created through decades of hybridization, may be responsible for this dramatic increase in immune reactivity. The story of celiac disease teaches us something crucial. It's not always a gut problem. It's called the great imitator, because for half the people who have it, the primary symptoms aren't digestive. They might have anemia, migraine headaches, arthritis, infertility, or chronic fatigue. The immune attack triggered by wheat can manifest anywhere in the body. Dr. Davis argues we should think of celiac disease as just the most extreme expression of a much broader spectrum of gluten sensitivity. He shares this powerful story about Wendy, a 36-year-old schoolteacher suffering from severe ulcerative colitis. For 10 years, she lived with constant pain, cramping, and bleeding. She was on multiple toxic medications, and her doctors were telling her the next step was removing her colon. She'd been tested for celiac disease, negative. But Dr. Davis, seeing the connection between autoimmune diseases and wheat, urged her to try eliminating it for just 4 weeks. Skeptical, but desperate, she agreed. 3 months later, she walked into his office transformed. She'd lost 38 pounds. Her ulcerative colitis was nearly gone. A year later, she was off all medications with no return of symptoms. Cured. If she didn't have celiac disease, what did she have? She had a condition triggered by wheat, something modern medicine didn't have a neat label for, but which responded completely to removing the offending food. This opens up a huge, unsettling can of worms. If wheat can cause such a devastating inflammatory response in someone without classic celiac disease, what else can it do? The evidence points to a frighteningly long list. Let's talk about your joints. We often think of arthritis as simple wear and tear, especially from carrying extra weight. But it's more complicated. The same inflammatory signals pumped out by wheat belly visceral fat also inflame and erode joint tissue. Plus, wheat contributes to chronic low-grade acidosis in your body. Unlike fruits and vegetables which are alkaline, grains, especially wheat, are highly acidic. To neutralize this acid, your body draws on its alkaline reserves. Where's the biggest reserve of alkaline minerals? Your bones. Over years and decades of a grain-heavy diet, your body is constantly leaching calcium from your bones to buffer this acid load. This leads to osteopenia and osteoporosis, making your bones brittle and prone to fracture. But perhaps the most insidious damage happens through a process called glycation. Remember those high blood sugar spikes caused by wheat? When there's excess glucose in your bloodstream, it starts sticking to proteins throughout your body in an irreversible process that creates advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. The acronym is grimly appropriate, because AGEs are primary drivers of the aging process. They gum up proteins in your body, making tissues stiff and dysfunctional. Glycation clouds your eye lenses, leading to cataracts. It stiffens your arteries, causing atherosclerosis and high blood pressure. It damages cartilage in your joints, making them brittle and arthritic. It even mucks up neuronal connections in your brain, contributing to dementia. Diabetes is the perfect model for accelerated aging because diabetics live in a state of chronic high blood sugar and therefore high glycation. They develop heart disease, kidney failure, and dementia at much younger ages. Because wheat spikes blood sugar more than almost any other food, it's a powerful engine for glycation and accelerated aging. Every bagel, every croissant, every slice of healthy whole-grain bread contributes to this process, slowly stiffening and aging your body from the inside out. And then there's your heart. For decades, we were told the key to heart health was avoiding saturated fat and cholesterol. But this has turned out to be a massive, tragic oversimplification. Modern lipoprotein analysis shows the real danger isn't just, quote, high cholesterol. It's the type of cholesterol particles you have. The most dangerous are small, dense LDL particles. These are small enough to wiggle into artery walls, become oxidized and glycated, and trigger the inflammatory plaque that leads to heart attacks. So what causes these dangerous, small LDL particles? It's not fat, it's carbohydrates. When you eat a carb-rich diet, especially one high in wheat, you trigger a process in your liver called de novo lipogenesis, literally, making new fat. Your liver takes excess sugar from carbohydrates and converts it to triglycerides. These get packaged into VLDL particles. Through a series of reactions in your bloodstream, these VLDL particles convert into those small, dense, artery-clogging LDL particles. The advice to cut fat and eat more healthy whole grains has been a recipe for disaster. It created the exact metabolic conditions that promote the most dangerous form of cholesterol and drive heart disease. By eliminating wheat, you shut down this process. Your triglycerides plummet, and your body stops producing small LDL particles, shifting instead to large, fluffy, relatively harmless LDL. Wheat's damage extends even to the most protected part of our body, the brain. We've already talked about the temporary, drug-like effects of exorphins, but there's growing evidence that the immune attack triggered by gluten can cause permanent, irreversible brain damage. There's a condition called gluten ataxia. It's a progressive disease where the immune system attacks the cerebellum, the brain part responsible for balance and coordination. People with this condition slowly lose their ability to walk, control their movements, even perform simple tasks. For most of them, there are no intestinal symptoms, no warning sign from their gut that gluten is the culprit. By the time balanced symptoms appear, much of the damage is already done and irreversible. Dr. Davis shares Jason's story, a 26-year-old software programmer practically crippled by joint pain. He could barely walk. After seeing multiple specialists with no answers, he was told to try eliminating wheat. 5 days later, his pain completely vanished. But here's the stunning twist. When Jason tried reintroducing it by having a single sandwich, the pain came roaring back within minutes. His body was sending an unmistakable signal. This immune attack can also affect the cerebral cortex, the center of memory and higher thought, leading to gluten encephalopathy. It can cause migraines, stroke-like symptoms, and, in extreme cases, a fatal form of dementia. Again, these are often people with no gut symptoms of celiac disease. The war is being waged silently in their brains. Finally, let's talk about your body's largest organ, your skin. Dr. Davis calls it bagel face. Skin is an outward reflection of internal health, and wheat expresses itself on our skin in countless ways. We see it in acne. In Western cultures, acne is practically a universal teenage rite of passage. But in non-Westernized hunter-gatherer cultures that don't consume wheat, sugar, or dairy, acne is non-existent. The high insulin spikes triggered by wheat stimulate hormones in your skin that lead to oil overproduction and tissue growth, creating perfect conditions for pimples. We also see it in inflammatory rashes. The most common is dermatitis herpetiformis, an itchy, bumpy rash that's a direct skin manifestation of celiac disease. But the list goes on. Psoriasis, eczema, and even stranger, more disfiguring conditions. These rashes are outward signs of internal inflammation, a fire being stoked by wheat consumption. Even hair loss, in the form of alopecia areata, can be a sign of celiac-like inflammation of hair follicles, a condition that often reverses completely once wheat is eliminated. When you step back and look at the full picture Dr. Davis paints, it's staggering. We have a food that spikes blood sugar, causing a cycle of fat storage and hunger. It acts on the brain like an opiate, creating addiction and cravings. It triggers a wide spectrum of destructive immune and inflammatory responses, leading to arthritis, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and dozens of skin conditions. And this is the food we've been told for the past 40 years to eat more of for our health. It's a realization that's hard to swallow at first, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question becomes, what do we do about it? How do we break free from this pervasive, powerful grain? The first step, according to Dr. Davis, is a simple but profound decision. Perform a, quote, radical wheat-ectomy. This means eliminating wheat completely. Not just cutting back, but getting it out of your life entirely. Most people's immediate reaction is panic. But there's nothing left to eat. I'll starve. Wheat is everywhere. Bread, pasta, cereal, cookies, cakes, crackers. But it's also a hidden ingredient in soups, sauces, salad dressings, even things like lipstick and envelope glue. It's the cornerstone of convenience food. Dr. Davis acknowledges this transition can be tough, especially for the 30% of people who experience true withdrawal syndrome. For the first week, you might feel fatigued, irritable, mentally foggy. This is the combined effect of your body adapting to burning fat instead of a constant sugar supply, and your brain getting cut off from its regular exorphin supply. It's like nicotine withdrawal, unpleasant but temporary, and a sign you're breaking a powerful addiction. So what do you eat instead? The answer is simple: real food. Fill the calorie gap left by wheat with vegetables, raw nuts, healthy oils like olive and coconut oil, meats, eggs, and cheese. The book provides clear guidance. Vegetables should be unlimited. Fruits in moderation, especially high-sugar tropical fruits. Raw nuts are a superstar food you can eat freely. Healthy fats aren't the enemy, they're essential. What about fiber and B vitamins? That's another myth. You'll get far more fiber and nutrients by replacing 2 slices of whole wheat bread with a large salad or a handful of almonds. Real food is packed with nutrients that processed, fortified wheat products are trying to imitate. One of the biggest traps to avoid is the world of gluten-free products. An entire industry has sprung up creating gluten-free breads, cookies, and pastas. But what are they made of? Typically cornstarch, rice starch, potato starch, or tapioca starch. These are highly refined powdered starches that, in many cases, spike your blood sugar even more than wheat does. They're junk food in disguise. Replacing one wheat belly-causing food with another isn't a solution. Perhaps the most amazing thing that happens when you eliminate wheat is what happens to your relationship with food. Your appetite is no longer driven by a biochemical roller coaster. That constant, gnawing hunger disappears. You eat when you're truly hungry and feel satisfied with less. You can go hours without thinking about food. That afternoon slump, that sleepy fog hitting after a sandwich lunch, vanishes. You regain control. You're no longer a slave to cravings dictated by this addictive grain. And then there's the odd phenomenon of re-exposure. Many people wheat-free for a few months find that if they indulge in even a small amount, the reaction is swift and unpleasant. It might be hours of gas, bloating, and cramping that feels like food poisoning. It might be a return of joint aches or brain fog. Your body, once healed, sends a very clear message: don't ever give me that stuff again. The journey away from wheat is more than just a diet. It's a fundamental shift in how you see food and experience your own body. It's about breaking free from a food that's quietly taken control of our health, our appetites, even our minds. It's a path back to how our bodies are meant to feel: energetic, clear-headed, free from chronic pain and disease. It is, as the book's title promises, a path back to health. When you finish a book like Wheat Belly, you're left with this mix of shock and, oddly enough, empowerment. The shock comes from realizing that a food so deeply woven into our culture, so celebrated as wholesome and necessary, could be the source of so much suffering. It forces you to question everything you thought you knew about healthy eating. It makes you look at the food pyramid, those heart-healthy labels on cereal boxes, and mainstream nutrition advice with healthy skepticism. Dr. Davis's work is a powerful reminder that science is a process of discovery, and sometimes the most profound discoveries overturn our most cherished beliefs. For decades, we waged war on fat, and in the process, we surrendered our health to an army of refined carbohydrates, led by their 5-star general, modern wheat. But the real power of this book isn't just in the problems it exposes, it's in the simple, elegant solution it offers. The message isn't to buy some expensive supplement or subscribe to a complicated meal plan. The message is to remove the offending agent and let your body do what it does best: heal itself. This idea is incredibly empowering. It takes control out of the hands of the food industry and pharmaceutical companies and puts it back in your hands. It tells you you're not destined to be overweight, diabetic, or in pain. You're not a victim of your genes or a slowing metabolism. You have a choice. You can choose to stop eating the food making you sick. For a young person, this message is especially crucial. You have the opportunity to sidestep decades of health problems that have become the norm for previous generations. You can learn this lesson now, instead of after years of struggle. So what's a practical way to start? You don't have to take Dr. Davis's word for it. You can run the experiment on yourself. The most powerful action you can take is committing to a strict, 100% wheat-free trial for just 4 weeks. Don't just cut back, go all in. For 30 days, eliminate everything made from wheat, read labels, be vigilant, and just pay attention to how you feel. Notice your energy levels, mental clarity, sleep quality, digestion. Notice the aches and pains you might have thought were just normal. And yes, notice what happens to your weight, especially around your middle. For many, the results are so rapid and profound, they become their own proof. After 30 days, you'll have your own data, you'll have your own answer, and that's more powerful than any study or any book. This isn't about deprivation. It's about discovery. Discovering that real food, vegetables, fruits, nuts, meats, eggs, is more satisfying and delicious than you ever imagined. Discovering what it feels like to be free from the constant cycle of craving and hunger. It's ultimately about discovering the vibrant health that's been waiting for you all along, just beneath the surface of a wheat-filled world. That was a summary of Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis. We've certainly covered the main arguments today, but I have to be honest. A summary is like looking at a photograph of the Grand Canyon. It gives you the idea, but it can never capture the breathtaking experience of standing on the edge yourself. The real power of this book is in the details, the patient stories, the deep dive into scientific studies, the way each piece of the puzzle clicks into place. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, made you curious, or given you a flicker of hope, then I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's about experiencing that aha moment for yourself, a moment that could genuinely change your relationship with food and your health for the rest of your life. Also, if you found this summary valuable, and it sparked some new ideas, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Every week, we explore big ideas that can help us build better lives. Let's keep growing together.